Johnny helped a lot with the slides and stuff to try to help people visualize and see, and we're all different learners and stuff like that. But one of the things that we had a thought on was doing a panel. So first what I want to do is I want everybody to go through and say how many years you've been helping with camp and what your role has been and your name.
Is this working? Okay. My name is Emily Larson. This will be my second year of camp, and last year I was a camp counselor.
Jody Miller, and I don't know, 4 years? How many years?
You've been here since the beginning?
Yeah.
This will be our 6th year.
6. Oh, time's flying. 6 years and chapel leader.
Casey, and I guess 5 because I've been all of them minus 1 because I was pregnant one of them. And I do the pictures, photography stuff.
I'm Tim Siner. This will be my 4th year in all 4 or last 3 years counselor.
My name's Jordan Yatto, and I went last year. This is my 2nd year, and then I was a camp counselor last year.
My name's Duncan. This is my, I think, 4th year. Wait, no. How old am I? 21? Yeah, 4th year. I've been a counselor and direct.
And does anybody here have a degree in children? Like, does anybody feel like they're like overly, besides Emily, who does this for kind of a living? But when you went into camp, did you really know what you were stepping into?
I'm a hybrid of things. My major in college was adolescent psych and counseling, so trauma stuff, reading, but mainly like how it affects teenage years, like what happened to you that led to now.
I would say I thought I did because I'm a mother and teach kids church on the weekend. And I was pretty surprised at how those skills did not meet my needs on the field, in the trenches. Is that what you're asking? But I love it.
So my background is in social work, but there was also a lot of qualities about camp that was my first time stepping into, talking about God. I don't get that opportunity at my work, so that was really amazing to be a part of.
So why do each of you sign up to come back every year or for another year? Why do you sign up?
You know what? Ray Bauman, he said this so eloquently one of the years, and it really is like, it is a true picture of working together as a church and serving together, and it's just so beautiful and such an amazing experience where we all feel like we're on the same team, working for him, for them, and he said it, I mean, how did he say that? It was so beautiful, but working together with our community of believers is so rewarding.
I would say that, like, the rewarding part of it is, like, being able to give the kids something that they're not used to, or telling them about God when they're not used to hearing about God. So that's something that I like to go back for, just, like, tell them and give them stuff they're not used to having or being able to have.
Yeah, I think whenever you see the kids and how excited they get for something that we kind of take for granted, some of us, like growing up, like something as simple as like a birthday party or being read a bedtime story before bed, when you see how excited they are from 1 week at camp and then how sad they are to leave, it kind of makes you want to continue to give back to them.
I was going to say, when my first year, I think Sage was 9 months old, and she actually took her first steps at camp. I was somewhere else, and all the teenage girls were like, oh my gosh, Sage, and like everyone was gushing over her, and I immediately got like kind of defensive. I was like, she's watched 360 days of the year. Like, someone is tracking her first steps, someone's tracking her birthday, someone knows her middle name, someone knows what she likes and dislikes. But all these other kids, like, people don't watch, no one's tracking them, keeping a memory book, like, focused on them 365 days of the year. So I'm like, these 5 days, I don't need to think about my child. Like, she could have come out of somebody else's tummy. Like, these kids could have come to me, but they didn't. And so in my mind, I was like, my daughter's no more important than all of these kids here. She's mine, so I'm going to take care of her, but these kids deserve my undivided attention this week. And so I was like, she needs to not be at camp. She needs to go stay with grandma for the week, because these kids, like, they didn't deserve the home they were born into, just like my kids didn't deserve the home they were born into. They didn't earn it. They weren't good, and so they got my house. They're bad, so they got a different house. So
You know, when I first came to camp, my first year, I remember we were in the old sanctuary, and you came up and was talking about how much, especially men volunteers, you needed more men, and man, I prayed on it, and it's like, man, it's a week, and it's like, but I don't have a good excuse, and it did. I felt the calling to do it, and when you get there, like I said, this will be my 4th year coming back, and it's I would say it's kind of like a hurt so good, because it's not an easy week, and you see a lot of the trauma, and it gets to you. But then at the end of the week, it's such a gratifying feeling to see the effect that you have on the kids. And what's really, really important, and I just think it's just the coolest thing, is when we're at chapel and the kids just pay attention. It is the coolest thing, because you would think that they didn't, they wouldn't have the attention for it, but, when they start hearing about God, and then when they come back and you're in the cabin with them and they start asking questions, that's the really, really cool, gratifying part.
It's so true. I was thinking when Casey was talking, the first year we did camp, I tried to bring my family. Oh my gosh, you guys. Poor choice. They went packing like day 2. I was like, you have no place here, you have to go. Because just like she said, I realized I can't pay attention to what our most important thing is that week, which is our campers, and pay attention to my kids who are cared for their entire life all the time. And so kind of the same realization. Listening to all of you guys talk about your reasons why, I mean, I could go through and gush about how amazing you are at each of your roles, and how, like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be at camp, and how you do it so greatly. So I love having you guys back. Thank you for coming back again. Next, could you guys share a hard moment, or your hardest moment that you've had at camp?
The very last day, I thought I was prepared to say goodbye to these kids, but there's nothing that can really prepare you. But it's easy knowing that, okay, we've sewed into these kids for a week that they may not have had otherwise. So it's just kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, even though this is really hard, they're going to remember this for the rest of their life.
I think one of the hardest things, that is also very hard, and the difference of when they come and then when they leave, like, kids transformed by the love and attention and care of all of the volunteers. But I think what's difficult for me is, and I still struggle with this, is trying to reason with a kid who is, you probably both have better words for this, but like, they're afraid, or they've been stimulated in some way or overstimulated in some way, and trying to reason with them when they're in fight or flight mode, and you just still try to, like, say words to connect with their brain, and their brain is nowhere near. And so trying to learn, like, to just be with them, but don't touch them, sorry. Don't be with them like that, but just to, like, try to get your body to calm their body. I think that was the hardest part for me. Like, I'm a safe person. Why can't you tell that? But they can't tell that, so it's really hard.
One of the hardest things for me that every once in a while I have to, like, step away and, like, get a little choked up is how casually they talk about home to home. Or, like, this one little girl had caught a fish, and I was like, oh, have you been fishing before? And she was like, oh yeah, the dad Jeff took me fishing once. And I was like, oh, is that your dad? And she was like, well, that's the other dad. And she goes, I'd rather be with the other dad. And she said something about, but he doesn't like kids anymore. So we had to move, like so casual. And I was like, my kids don't know that there's an option to like move from house to house against your will, or like that all of a sudden someone you don't know is going to take you and take you somewhere else. Like my kids don't know that that's a reality for other kids. And then I was thinking through, I don't know what happened to her, but was there a time that she was sad she couldn't be with this other dad and she asked, and someone not wanting to tell her hard things said, oh, he doesn't like kids anymore? That's the answer you gave this child? I know. I'm like, great, now she's going to have other trauma from that moving on. Like, oh, my dad liked me, but then he didn't like kids, so we got moved. And I'm just like, oh, like, I don't know. It's the things that the kids have seen and heard about already that, like, 8-year-olds shouldn't know about yet. It's just, like, I don't know. It's sad.
I would say for me, it actually, Kelly was there. She witnessed it. It was last day of camp last year, and it, it's bittersweet. A lot of these kids, this particular week is the best week of their whole summer. But I wouldn't say summer, the whole year, or even in some of their case, it's their whole life. And the one young boy, it was time to get on the bus to go home, and he ran away. And we had to chase him. He was mad. He was kind of fighting back, and really wouldn't say what was wrong. But then, he broke down and cried. He didn't want to go back. He knew that, this was the best time he was having, and he didn't want to go back. And for me, as you can tell, it was tough. It just that part, where they're going, and it's like I said, it's bittersweet because we are giving them, some of those kids the best week of their life, and to see them, it's that, bad that they don't want to go back to where they came from.
I would say the hardest part for me was like when I'd say the kids come, like the first kid comes, and you might click with him right away, and then you have another kid, you try talking to him and he just blows you off, like doesn't say anything. I know last year I was with Duncan and we had a kid that he never talked all week, like mute, he didn't talk, and like figuring out how to communicate with kids differently, it was something different that we had to work through last year. But I would say that's probably harder when you're at chapel and the kid doesn't want to sit through chapel and you trying to use like reverse psychology to get him back, or telling them they're having so much fun over there, why would you not want to be there with them? And like, I don't know, just trying to get them back to do what they're supposed to be doing it's just tough.
I would say that the last day is usually the hard. It's not really. I mean, I'm younger, so it's not really physically demanding for me. But well, I'm not. Well, so, anyways, on the last day, I think it was not last year, but the year before. There's a kid. I guess we can't say names. Probably not. Well, pretend like his name was Timmy. There was a kid that was actually not in my. Was he in your cabin, Tim?
He's black cabin.
But anyways, we got on the bus ride home because I was on the bus crew. And me and Justin were sitting by him, and anyways, they get their snacks on the bus ride home, and he kind of throughout the week got in a few scuffles or whatever, and he gets his peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I think is what they had, throws it on the ground. I don't want peanut butter and jelly. Starts screaming at us. Then we give him his chips, crumbles them up all over the ground, throws them on the ground, throws his MP3 player. Kelly comes back. He's basically trying to punch her. We're trying to hold him down. He's punching the window. I'm like, great, he's going to shatter the window. We're going to fly out the window. And anyways.
We weren't on a plane. We were on a bus.
Anyways, he's doing all these things, and then we're getting closer to church, and we're like, okay, well, we're going to have to figure out a way to get him in, because at this point he's trying to basically just punch anybody that wants to talk to him. And then as we're kind of pulling into the parking lot, by this point he's on the ground on his back and pushed his way all the way to the front, and we're basically protecting the driver from just getting, hit by this kid. And then he realizes that we pulled into the lot, and he just breaks down, and he starts crying. And basically he was fine at that point, wasn't fighting us. Basically, we just had to pick him up and kind of carry him in. But then I remember he was a Bosco kid, and the Bosco people came up with their dumb masks on and tried to talk to him, and I remember him just looking at them like he doesn't want anything to do with them, kind of blowing them off, and then kind of coming and sitting by us, and just seeing. By that point, we kind of realized like he wasn't mad about peanut butter and jelly sandwich. He doesn't hate us or whatever. He was just that broken that he didn't want to go back to Bosco, didn't want to go back to where he was after this great week. So it wasn't necessarily during camp for that time that made it hard. But one of the hardest moments is seeing where they go back to. Some of them, they have decent families they go back with, but especially the Bosco kids, it's always hard seeing them go back.
Yeah, that specific year was probably, every bus ride, you guys, is, if you're on the bus team, which I think some of you might be, I can't remember. I'm old. I'm not as young as Duncan. I don't remember things. So, and I get tired at camp too. So, the bus ride home is probably one of the most heartbreaking things, and then the saying goodbye at the end. And that specific kid that year, he sat in the front row and he sobbed through the whole closing program because he even said on the bus, I remember the look on his face. He's like, I don't want to go back. Just the biggest tears you've ever seen in your life. And his reality was he was supposed to then come the next year, and he was in a home, in a very solid home. And he did not want to come back because he did not want to see anybody from Bosco. And I was looking so much forward to seeing his progress because all I'd heard from foster mom was like how well he was doing. So I was super excited to see him back. He was a hard kid, you guys. He fought us every day, fought us every single day. And I still would take him back again and again, over and over again, and I'd stand in the fight with him because he's exactly why. I could cry right now. I need to pull myself together. He's exactly why we do what we do, why we're doing camp and trying to give good moments to these kids who won't necessarily get to go to camp anywhere else. So that's enough from me. Can you guys share how has camp impacted your life, and how has it impacted the way that you view kids in foster care? It's a two-parter. So how has camp impacted your life, and how has it impacted or changed the way that you view kids in foster care?
What was the first one? Oh, impacted your life.
Yes.
It's made me realize how much bigger the world is than just us, because I always knew, like, in high school or whatever, you always hear about foster care, or you see different movies or whatever, but I think until you see it face to face and you're actually, talking to a kid who's experienced things, it kind of opened my eyes to that. So it impacted my life in that, realizing, well, first of all, if you're going to camp and you think it's about you, don't even go. But so it's kind of made me realize that how much bigger everything is around us, and the things that happen aren't just in the movies. It's actually worse most times, which that also kind of changed my view of foster care as well. It kind of all goes together.
How has camp impacted your life?
Okay. So I would say it impacted my life, like just for looking at stuff that they don't have and that we do have, and we just don't really care about. Like when we get out the snow cone maker and the kids freak out, and that's something like I'm like, whatever, who cares? Like I don't. But like just small things like that we think that are stupid or small and that don't matter, and they just freak out over them. That just is cool. And then I would say me not knowing and just being like ignorant to how bad foster care is and like how badly the kids are treated, and like not knowing how bad they are treated, like at Bosco, and just the few kids that we had from our cabin that went to Bosco, or kids that I've talked to that went to Bosco from there, and like how they want to like stay at camp and not go back just because it is like they're treated so poorly. And I don't know, it just opened my eyes up to stuff that I was, I guess, ignorant to, just not knowing.
Yeah, I think it gives you a sense of, how much we take things for granted. These kids don't see or haven't had what a lot of us have had and grown up. But, a little bit of love goes a long way with those kids. And you see that, after my first year, I had gone and, done some visits to Bosco. to see one of the campers, and who actually eventually got placed. It was actually a good ending, you know, compared to some of these kids. But when you go to Bosco and you see, you know, how they live and who's taking care of them, don't get me wrong, there are some really good people there, you know, that really truly care about these kids. But there's a lot of people there that it's just a job. You know, they could care less if the kids are there or not, you know, and I think just putting that, you know, for me, just the impact that's had on me, you know, this kind of makes you feel how much and how important this particular week really is, you know. So that's the impact it's had on me.
It was, since in school I did adolescent psych and counseling, which is like birth to adolescent development. So things that happen to you, attachment you make. And so I understood it like textbook and test wise, but then you're watching it happen, and every single human is born and your brain is trying to answer, am I provided for? Am I connected? Am I safe? Like everybody's brain wants to keep them alive. My brain is good. Like I was born to parents that took care of me. I was not, you know, abused by them. We had food when I needed it. I was clothed. I was touched safely. If that wasn't your context from birth to now, then a kid that's fighting or acting out, like you can't be like, oh, shame on you. Like this kid is a bad behavior. No, it's not. He's keeping himself alive, because before, like touch equals harm, or a dad equals harm, or mom equals danger or disconnect. And so if you look at them as like they have a machine inside them too that's trying to keep them alive, the more destructive and chaotic and bad behavior it is, the harder junk they've experienced, and they've had to work hard to stay alive to this point. Whether it's like through not being connected, everyone needs attachment, everyone needs provision, they've had to fight for food, they've had to sneak food, they've had to hide or lie about things with a stepdad or whatever it is. Like, it's just hard to see how bad it is they've gone through. And I always try to picture my kids experiencing what they've experienced, and that should break your heart. Like, I don't ever want anyone to touch my daughter inappropriately. That's happened to some of the kids you're looking at. And so I'm like, they're not less than. I just try to imagine that happening to my family, and then I feel like if you can't stay present then and be like, this is urgent, I have to love you, I have to be safe, I have to care for you. And then I think the way it's affected me in my everyday life, when you're out and about and you see someone that you're kind of like they're, you know, whatever, think about, I don't know what happened to that person as a child. I don't know what happened to that person growing. Like, you just don't know people's context or how they ended up where they ended up. Someone standing on the street corner asking for money. You don't know how they got there. It's not like they need to go get a job. Well, do they have an address, a license, a social security card? Do they have a family that told them they should get a job? Like, they don't have the same context as we have. So
at my desk that I sit at every morning when I spend time in the Word and with the Lord, I've got 3 pictures, and they are of my family and 2 pictures from camp of 2 different kids. And I get to see those pictures every single day and pray for those kids. And seeing them awaken to God is, what was the question?
How has camp impacted your life?
Yes. Seeing those kids awaken to the fact that God sees them through our eyes, that He loves them through our experiences towards them, and see them respond to God in a positive way is such an amazing moment. The other thing that helps me, or that I try to take with me now when I see foster kids or kids in school or kids here, is that I'm not the parent. So I have 2 kids that I'm responsible for to raise. And so if I try to parent, you know, kids here at church or parent kids at camp, it is not fun for them and it's not fun for me. And so what I learned from these kids is they're just kids. They want to have fun. You know, if you're fun loving and silly with them and just try to enjoy them for where they are, it's a great experience. So it's hard when you are a parent to not just go into parent mode, but to try and just enjoy them where they meet you is lovely.
For me, it has impacted me because ever since camp ended last year, I was just constantly racking my brain of what more can we be doing that we're not already doing. And it's hard because there's only so much you can do with the foster care system that we have. It's a broken system. So that really opened up my eyes, and just it also impacted me in ways like having more patience. I thought I had a lot of patience, and then you go into camp and it's like, wow, I need to take a step back from this situation and just take a deep breath and really regulate myself so these kids can see the role models around them, and that can really help them moving forward with whoever they're going back to. So yeah.
That's good. I was just taking notes because each of you guys kind of prompted a thought that I had. A lot of you might not know what Bosco is. Bosco is St. John Bosco. It's a children's home. It's actually a live-in facility for kids in care who can't be, what they say, safely placed in a home for whatever behavioral thing they have going on. And all of our kids at Bosco come on heavy medication. I think a lot of the meltdowns we saw with one of your campers last year, it was always leading up to meds, because they're coming down off that and their body's so reliant on what they're on. So when we're talking about Bosco, we're talking about this group home. It's not called a group home, but it is a group home where kids are basically put if they can't find a home for them. So that was one thing. Another thing I was thinking about was I received an email this is kind of like how camp has impacted my life in like a few different ways. I received an email a few weeks ago from a camper we had named Jeremy. And he is now placed in a group home in Chicago. It's just like a Bosco, but it's Chicago. And he was begging us to help him find a family. Now, he hasn't been a camper of ours. Was Jeremy one of yours? I can't remember. I can't remember who he was with. I'd have to look. But he hasn't been with us for a few years. So he's a little older now. He's a teenager. But he kept calling it One Life Church. He's like, please bring me back to One Life Church. Can you please help me find a family close to One Life Church? Like, I want to be a part of One Life Church. I came to church whenever I was still at Bosco. I need to be back there. I mean, he gave me his contact information. I emailed him back, all this stuff, just trying to encourage him, because obviously I can't place all of our kids that we have that need homes. We don't even have enough families for all the kids that we need families for. But knowing that the seed was planted, and he said, I don't act the same way that I acted that you saw at camp, because I have Jesus now. And I was like, you know what? Like, that is so huge, because I might not ever see Jeremy again, but he's carrying these little seeds that we're planting all week long, that he is important, that he is special, that he is created with purpose, that he is lovable, all these things. And he's remembering them, and he's going to carry those with him. And the fact that he even thought to find me, it's so crazy. I'm like, how did you even get my email address or even know how to look it up? But I mean, he did it. So I thought that was cool. I remember Jody saying one year, I think it was like our first or second year at camp, on the video, she talked about the countenance. And I think of that, I can actually picture you on the screen saying that, because it's so true. When you look into the eyes of the kids, and it's not the same as looking into the eyes of our kids that are in healthy homes. Like, it's just not. They come in with a heaviness, dark circles, with like a burden on their shoulders that they were never meant to carry, and it all shows in their face. And one kid we had for several years, TJ, he's my favorite. I mean, I love that kid so much. He was rough, you guys, but I loved him so much. And watching his transformation the few years that we had him, he went from hard, ready to fight you at every turn, downright kind of mean, I would even say, to a leader when he graduated out. And it was really cool to see just that difference in it. So, I mean, I know what we're doing is doing something. It's doing something positive for the kids. The one thing I love about what Tim said about he heard the call for men, and he was like, I don't really have an excuse. You guys, our boys are desperate for men, like positive male roles at camp. I mean, you can look around right now and you could see we're dominated with women in here. Like, that is camp too. We have just enough men to staff our kitchen and to complete 6 cabins. We have no extras of men. Every man is placed and will be worked all week. But what I love, I mean, obviously I love all of our volunteers. What I love is our men do such a great job. And they don't really know what they're doing. We always joke around, don't take offense to this, guys, but we always joke and say the men do a good job because they're used to being told what to do. And they just do it. Is that right? See? I mean, yep. Okay. And they don't, and then like as moms, we're used to momming all day, and we have this idea, or just as women, we have this idea of what the right way is to do it. And I feel like it's harder for our brains to switch off to the way that we're supposed to respond to these kids versus like the way we're used to responding to our own children. It's just different. So I love, I mean, I just think that the call for men is so great, and like, tell your friends if you have friends that want to come to camp, we'll take them in. But the last question I have for you guys is, what is your best moment at camp? What has been your best moment? Best memory, highlight, thing you think on?
I think someone touched on this, but at the beginning, kind of seeing a little bit of mistrust with not just the people around them, but with the world, really, and then seeing that transform over the week. You know, initially there might be some kids that are very shy or slow to open up, and then eventually they're like telling you their whole life story, which is extremely hard to hear because you're thinking you shouldn't have been exposed to that in any way. But also, it's that feeling of, okay, they trust me enough to share something so heavy that's been weighing on them. So that's my favorite moment.
I would say my first year, we had a young boy want to get baptized, which was super cool. You know, like I said, you know, the neat thing about camp is seeing the kids participate at chapel, and just, you know, you don't think they're listening, and they're listening, and then they come back to the cabin and they're asking questions, and that's, you know, that's the part where you can mentor, you know, and answer the questions. You know, for me, you know, I never had kids. I was never blessed with kids, but, you know, having, you know, patience, Emily said patience. That is the biggest thing to have. I know that's not part of the question, but I just wanted to say patience, because you're gonna need a lot of patience. And you know, I would say, you know, having the baptism and knowing that you are having an impact. You know, like I said, that last day, you could just feel the love that you've given them. You're getting it back. You know, and you know, you're not supposed to touch the kids, but you can just tell. You just have that connection with them, and it's just a gratifying. You know, like I said, it's a hard week, but that last day, and they leave. It's sad, and they're upset, but you know you've done a good job. You know, I would say it's the rewarding part.
Well, first of all, I think one of the things that I didn't think about going into camp is how cool it is to see, somebody said this earlier, but how cool it is to see the body of Christ kind of work together. And like, I remember, first of all, Tim, I didn't know who Tim even was until my first year of camp. And it's like that with a lot of people. It was his brother, yeah, it's his twin brother. But I think some of the cool moments, I have another one I'm going to share, but is seeing everyone kind of work together, especially like even in something as simple as like the boys showering at night. They don't, well, I won't write us out. We don't follow the schedule, but basically you bring everybody into the bathroom, everybody's helping each other out. No matter what cabin you're in, you're helping each other out. And just seeing people realize that It's so much bigger than us, and that we can help each other out. I think that's always something awesome to see. And also, so one of the best moments for me was my first year. I think we had a kid, the same kid he was talking about, who didn't talk, and then he ended up coming back. He skipped a couple years and then came back, but he didn't say a single word. And we were told before that he's mute and he's not going to talk. And our goal going into it was, we're going to make this kid talk. Like, with me, Caleb, and Jamie, we got to make him talk. And we didn't make him talk. But anyways, throughout the week, he'd start to communicate. That's how he would communicate. That's how he would communicate. Or he would make faces at us and communicate with us. But then at the birthday party that year, it was like scientist theme or something, and they got these notebooks with these invisible ink pens. And then that night, whenever Grandma and Grandpa came in to read, he started writing with his invisible ink pen into his notebook. And then, he handed us his notebook, and we take the light, and he started telling us a story on this invisible ink pen, because you can't see it unless you have the pen, and you shine the light on the blue light on the pen. Started telling us where he was from, how his mom locked him in the car and yelled at him and locked him in the car for 2 hours. His mom tried to run him over, all this stuff. And just being able to see the divine appointment of what are the odds that this kid who doesn't talk gets an invisible ink pen at a birthday party on a random Wednesday night, and that's how he's going to communicate with us, and how that's not a coincidence at all. And then 2 years later, we came with a we heard he was coming back, so we came with a notebook and a pen. He still has not talked. We haven't ever heard him say one word. And then I remember on the way home, he had this little MP3 player, and this song it's called Best Friends was playing. He was showing it to me and Caleb and pointing at us, saying, basically telling us, we're his best friends. And so it was just cool to see the divine appointment of someone who doesn't even talk still being able to connect with us.
I would say it's something that is cool, and Tim touched on it too, but when you go to chapel and the kids are hearing about God and we're sharing the word with them or whatever, and then we go back to the cabin for a break or whatever, and we sit down, we're like, all right, who wants to read the Bible? And like when one of them bites on it, I feel like that's cool, because you can get back into the word and read it to them again, or read something different to them, and they actually want to listen and hear more for it. They get hungry for it. So that is something cool, because they never get to hear it.
I can't remember who told me, but I take the pictures, and it's a task, because they get photo books at the end of camp with like pictures of themselves, but every kid has to have the same amount of photos. So it's like some kids are sitting and playing with Legos the whole week, whereas some are front line of everything. So I'm like, oh, we've got 100 of John over here, but we've got like 12 of Lego Kid. So I have to like stalk him, like, hey, you want to do something? They're like, no. So anyway, we're just like trying to get all these even amounts of pictures. But I heard someone was there last year whose mom is like a social worker at one of the schools that one of the Bosco kids goes to or something. And they were saying that this person who works at the kids' school, they see these books like year round. They'll bring them and show them for show and tell. They bring them like on their birthdays. They're like, we have these books. Was it Sydney? Do you remember that, Angie? Someone telling us that? You told me that. Yes. So they keep them. And like for some of them who, yeah, like they have them everywhere all the time. And some of them, maybe not all of them, but for kids who aren't being documented, like a mom is watching over them and posting, 3 months today, 6 months and 12 days, like all over Facebook. Like this is someone documented a week that I had and took a picture when I jumped so high into the lake and they saw me like kiss that frog or whatever the picture was we captured. Someone was paying attention and documenting them for a week, and they were on someone's radar for 1 week. And so that was cool for me. I was like, this is not in vain. I will take all the pictures.
I don't know what roles you guys have out here, but my husband and I, Jeff, we've talked and compared, and he, is a counselor or direct support, so he's with, 4 boys. Is that what it is? 4 boys. So, like, you get to have meaningful conversations because you're with those 4, the whole time. And as chapel, get to interact with all the kids. And so I tell Jeff that I wouldn't trade what I do, and then he tells me he wouldn't trade what he does. And so, so I don't get to have these deep cabin conversations, you know, late at night or anything like that. But one of my favorite moments was I did get to have just that, and it was last year at camp. And this young man who does live at Bosco, who came to me, let me know that, you know, he was thinking maybe he was supposed to be a girl, and God is stupid, and this is not how the world came into being. And he gave me some other alternate ideas about, you know, how the world is. And by the end of the week, like, he was just a proper theologian. Like, I pray for him because this kid's going to be a preacher, because he, like, thought deeply about the things of God by the end of the week. And he had so many questions and articulate. And we sat and talked for, I do not know, but it was a long time, and deeper questions than any kid has ever asked me to date. So it was a great moment.
I did. I just want to end with, I have not felt the presence of God more than I had at camp last year. And like everyone else has said too, just seeing the community come together and having that connection with everybody is such a blessing. So thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome. I think, and I'll touch on this in the next hour, but one of my favorite things, Kelly and Christy, I mean, I could speak on their behalf too, is like, you know, we work behind the scenes all year, and we try to do a good job preparing for this week. We try to place you guys with people we think you'll work well with what we know about you, like all the things. Like, I'm sitting there, like, frantically thinking through personalities and who I think will work well. We don't always hit it on the head, right? Sometimes we do make mistakes and we don't put people together and they don't like each other, and it's fine. But we do our best. But my favorite part is seeing it all play out through the week, because us three can't do it just off of our planning, right? I can plan all day, but I need people. Like, we need people to come together. And what I think is the most unique and cool thing about our church is that we staff our entire camp out of our church, out of the people that go here. And you go, and I talk to anybody else, and they can't even staff a small thing for their church, let alone 100 volunteers coming together for 1 week. That means you're sacrificing your time for vacation, or you're taking unpaid time off, or whatever it is. And I think that's one of the coolest things, is like, our church just has such a heart for what we're doing that it's now, I mean, it's like spreading like fire. So, I mean, thank you guys for joining our team, and welcome. But thank you guys so much for joining us on our panel. You did great. Does anybody have any questions before I release them off the stage? Go.
I don't know. Well, I kind of like what Jody was saying. I try to be like, I can't fix or therapy any of these kids this week. Like, I can't fix any of that. So sometimes I will acknowledge, like, oh, I'm sorry about that, and then move on. Like, try to find out what they like. I think my default is always try to make them think I'm really interested in them, which I am. Like, I always want to say, what do you like to do? What's your favorite food? What's your least favorite food? Like, what do you like about it? I try to default, because it's not time for me to be therapy. Like, oh, tell me about that, why your dad doesn't like you. It's hard. It's really sad. I think what you've talked about the first year, you can't let them see you, like, gushing or flinching about their situation. Like, you can't, even if your own kids come and ask you a question, you can't let them see you be like, huh, like, we're talking about this, because then you just gave them a context about that topic. So I think maintaining eye contact when they say something horrible, like one girl one year, we were praying with them at bedtime, and she was talking about, like, oh yeah, I can't live with my mom anymore because her boyfriend, like, punched me in the face or something. And we're all like, what? And we're like, I don't know if she was telling the truth. She said a lot of things that week, but regardless, a lot of things had happened to this girl. And so we were like, don't look at them like they're a object or a movie, or like, oh, you're this poor charity thing. I just try to I don't know, treat them normal and act like I'm just really interested in them as a person, not what they've been through? That's a hard question.
I think you can always say, I'm so sorry. And we'll talk about this in the next part of training, is repeating back what they've said to you. Like, whatever, what did she, I can't remember.
She said she can't live with her dad because he doesn't like kids anymore.
So acknowledging that you're listening is repeating back what they're saying, and you're down on their level, and you're looking in their eyes. And then you say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And then, like, you can move on from that. But acknowledging it is not a bad thing, or apologizing for something that's not their fault, that they had no control over. And then they know. And you can even say, that's not your fault.
Yeah.
You can let them know the truth of the matter. What Casey said is very good. I agree completely with that. But you can always acknowledge it. And you don't have to dwell on it. You don't have to cry. Like, you don't have to sit there and, like, roll around and wail and cry because it's sad. But I remember the one year I was sitting with TJ on the front porch. He was ready to fight somebody. And he was mad, but really he's just sad. And TJ was a big boy, you guys, a big boy. And he was mad at his mom. And as I'm sitting with him on the front porch because he couldn't go back in for bedtime because he wanted to beat everybody up, he broke down and he was just sad. And I just sat there with him for hours. Like, Kelly took a picture of us. It was for such a long time. And that's a picture that I go back to because it's like, just being and sitting with our kids is sometimes what they need. They don't need us to say certain words to them or anything. Sometimes they just need us to sit and be sad with them, and that's okay, and just say, I'm sorry, and be that person next to them. Like somebody said earlier, like being with them, not being with them, weird. It was you, Jody, wasn't it? Yeah, like to calm their body. Be that calming presence. Be that mom figure that he desperately needed to be next to, that he didn't have, but that he wanted. And in the same way, you could do that with every instance, really. But.
I remember tough guy TJ during graduation.
Oh, yeah.
He, like I said, he was a hard guy, but you could, every time he came, he softened up. And I just remember during his graduation, when we come back, the kids that we know aren't coming back, we kind of have a graduation for him. And he stood up here and you could tell he was upset because he wasn't coming back, So it was kind of neat to see that the impact that camp had on him.
For sure. So. Yeah, the transformation.
I don't know if you'll remember when you get there, but try to remember when you get there. Somebody pointed this out to me last summer, and it was such an eye-opening thing to me. And it was that we're all learning, like you said, we're all learning how to cope, how to be safe. And so for me, each morning, like, I go first to my cup of coffee. So if anybody tries to, like, talk to me before that has happened or before I've been in the Bible, like, I'm a little, that went out of order and now I'm kind of stressed. That's my self-soothing, my coping mechanism each day. And so someone was explaining to me, like, these are kids. They don't even maybe know what they need to self-soothe yet. So I know that I need this cup of coffee, or I know that I need this workout, or I know that I need, an hour of silence before I go out. They may not know, or maybe I'm on my phone scrolling and that calms me. They don't have access to these things maybe. And so to just try to keep in mind, like, they're kids and no one's even guiding them, like, hey, you know what? You might be tired, or you might be hungry, or you might need to rest. So to just try to remember, like, they're trying to figure things out too. So if they're acting out, it's probably because they need soothing in some way.
Anybody else have a question? If you think of something, you can always ask it in the next session. There's plenty of time for that. But we'll go ahead and break while we wait. I think there's some snacks out there. If anybody wants to go grab something, go for it. Out in the well. Thank you, guys.
cool. With foes on my left and fears on my right, they think that I'm all by myself in this fight, but they do not know the infinite size of the God who is by my side. Hey, under fire, but my Goliath standing in the shadow of the Almighty. I ain't lying, just testifying. Man, I'm talking about a big God, big God. When trouble comes around the way, only remedy for big odds is a big God. Ain't nobody gonna shake my faith. No, I'm not afraid. Throw my hands up in praise for the times that He pulled me through. I'm counting on a big God that they can't stop. He's a big God. Why in the world would I worry away when I know that He holds my world in His hands? The monsters I face don't make me afraid when I know that I'm standing right next to Him. Man, I'm talking about a big God, big God. When trouble comes around the way, only remedy for big odds is a big God. Ain't nobody gonna shake my faith. No, I'm not afraid. Throw my hands up in praise for the times that He pulled me through. I'm counting on a big God that they can't stop. He's a big God. Than your brokenness, than your dreams not seen yet, than your greatest fear. He's so much bigger. When I couldn't get up, I could always feel your love. You're picking me up. I can always feel your love. Man, I'm counting on a big God, big God. When trouble comes around the way, only remedy for big odds is a big God. Ain't nobody gonna shake my faith. No, I'm not afraid. Throw my hands up in praise for the times that He pulled me through. No, I'm not afraid of the things that I face, 'cause I know what I've seen Him do. I'm counting on a big God that they can't stop. He's a big God. You're a big God. You're a big God. Hey, yeah. I know we got a big God.
You came to set us free. Even in the valley of the shadow of death, I can take rest, 'cause the living God is living in my chest. Every day I wake up feeling blessed, and even if I don't, I see it as a test. 'Cause I was lost until you found me. Now I know you're all around me. Nothing I could ever do can separate my love from you. You came to set us free. You came to set us free. I am no longer bound. You came to set us free. You came to set us free. I am no longer bound.
Yeah. Say I'm so thankful you ain't drive me in that pit. Hey, nah. Saw my soul inside that famine, said that's it. Grace now. You never flake in the cold winter. I just came to borrow with the gold winners. Fast forward, turn to a road runner. Spirit caught me here, go get it. Shed blood, gave me lemonade on this cold Bennett. Pick me up. Always Timmy Turner, always chasing after Vicky. Took me to His fountain and gave me peace and chose to cleanse me up. Now I'm testifying of your greatness. This a different look. Go, life been hitting hard, let's take it slow. Take a walk by the river and let you flow. Cause Lord, you are all I ever want. You're all I ever want. Cause I was lost until you found me. Now I know you're all around me. Nothing I could ever do to separate my love from you.
Can you set us free?
Checking. Hey, you guys, we're going to get started. If you can hear my voice, please head inside. Yeah. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can, then what do you say? Oh, if you can hear me, clap twice. Nobody can hear me. Perfect. If you guys walked past the table in the middle and didn't grab the 2 sheets off of it, you can grab one now if you want to. All right, guys. Hi, everybody. So obviously this year, if you're returning, you realize that we're doing things a little bit different. The first hour with our new volunteers, we did a panel, and I thought it went great. So thank you guys for being on the panel. But what we did in our panel was kind of like a Q&A for all of our new people to kind of give personal experience from different perspectives, because everybody kind of had different jobs, came from different walks of life, different jobs in life, all the things. So it was kind of cool. But I did want to give a chance, if anybody wanted to share anything, now is the time. If you had a story that was good, that was hard, something you learned, advice, you can do that now. Anybody? Oh, hold on. You need a microphone.
I would just say for the new people, your heart's going to be changed big time.
For sure. Anybody else? And before I start, happy birthday to Ray and happy birthday to Sarah. And now we're going to hear from the birthday girl.
I was just going to say that you come with open, not expectations, but just be willing to do whatever, because it changes so quickly and on the fly, and every single year has been different. Every single year than the previous one has always been different. So, I mean, I'm getting up there in years, you know, and I just was like, do I want to put in that I don't necessarily want to sleep in the cabins at my age? And I said, you know what? No, I'm just going to see where the Lord puts me. So I just decided to let the Lord decide where I'm at. So thanks for putting me in the cabin.
Listen, Sarah does an excellent job in the cabin, so that's why she's placed there. Even at the beautiful age of 50, she's still got it. Anybody else? Zach, you better be nice to your mom on her birthday. Okay, anybody else have anything they'd like to share? All right. So before I start talking about the roles, I just want to remind you guys that when you're looking at your paper, just keep in mind, you guys, we are a team. And so if you are a counselor, you are not in charge of your direct support. And direct support, you are not in charge of your counselor. You work together as a team, which is what I will say over and over and over again. There is not a hierarchy. So in all these roles, whether you're in the kitchen, whether you're in Camp Create, whether you are doing fishing or whatever it is, there's an importance to it, and that's why we have it. So just know that every role has its own purpose. Every role has its own decisions to be made, different things that are expected of them, but every single role, every person is accountable to the directors. So if this is your first, your second, your third, or your sixth year, where are my sixth year people? You've been here since the beginning. That is so awesome. I love it. It's great that we have such a huge returning every year. Just stay humble because like Sarah said, every year it's different. And Sarah's been here since the beginning. And our first year we learned so many hard things, scary things. We were all very green to what we were doing. We didn't know what we were doing is basically what I'm saying. And so just go into this humble and ready to learn. And I know every year as a director, I learn from you guys with the feedback you give at the end of the week or just watching you guys engage the kids. I learn from you and I learn from our kids. So we're all, and I think we said that in the panel before, like we learn something new every time. And just be willing to serve each other and to serve our kids. When you came in, you received the paper. It has everyone's roles on it. We're going to go over those really quick. You'll see a common theme throughout a lot of them, but we'll start with the first one is the grandma and grandpa, and their job is to love on the kids throughout the day, read and pray with the kids at night. Chapel, Breakfast Club, and Camp Create team, they assist Jody in whatever she needs, and they help the kids create fun memories in Camp Create. The directors, our job is to maintain morale and to make sure camp runs smoothly. The men counselors, which you sleep in the cabins with the kids, you are to care for the campers in your cabin as a team with your direct support. The women counselors, it's the same. You sleep in the cabin with your kids, and your job is to care for the campers in your cabin as a team with your direct support. And then the women direct support, your job, you don't sleep with the kids, but you do care for the campers in their cabin as a team with your counselors. And the same for the men direct support. You don't sleep in the same cabin with your kids, but your job is to care for your campers in your cabin as a team with your counselors. And then we have our photo and our video team, and they are the ones that are in charge of taking all the pictures and the videos of what goes on at camp. They produce a closing video for campers and their families and the recap video that we show the church family. And that should also list on there that they're the ones in charge of creating the books that the kids go home with. The kitchen staff, they keep us all well fed all week, creating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The medical team, they keep and dispense all medication. They treat all ailments and wounds. The camp runners, they are the ones that are going out for all the things that we either run out of or we forgot. That does happen. So they do all the shopping needs for the week. Our girl junior staff, will be split up. So not all girl junior staff have the same job, but one of the girl junior staff jobs is to do snack shack, mail, and kitchen cleanup. They make all the snacks for camp. They write all the mail to the campers, and they help after every meal with cleanup in the kitchen. And when they are free, they're welcome to jump in and help with the girl cabins. The boat, they are the captains of the boat. Counselor support, they are the early morning crew with the kids that are early risers, and they have coffee that is ready for the adults, not the children, only the adults. We also learned that one year. That was really fun. Bible study teacher, this is not the same as our chapel time. Bible study teacher is going to be offered on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This is time that is set aside for you as counselors and direct support and just staff to go and be encouraged. So understand that's for you. And then our boy junior staff, they are also our fishing team, and they are down at the water anytime there are children. They make sure all fishing equipment is ready to go every morning, and they fix things throughout the day. Also, they help pick up trash around camp throughout the week, and when they are free, they can jump in and help the boy cabins. And then we have our chapel team, which run all of Breakfast Club and all of chapel time teaching and activities. So reading through, obviously that's a lot of roles. We have 100 people going to camp this year. It is important that we all view our role as one small part in trying to rebuild hope in our kids. There's not one role on here that is more important than the other. They all take each other. 1 Corinthians 12 talks about the importance of the roles within the body of Christ. So I'm going to read that just as a good reminder. In verse 12, it says, it's talking about one body with many members. And says, for just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them, as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. We are one body. We have many parts. Do not view your part as less than, okay, or greater than, because without, like, I'm the director. Christy and Kelly are the directors. If it's just us, where's camp? It's nowhere. I need my kitchen team. I need my counselors. We need our direct support. We need our fishing guys. We need our Camp Create people. Like, does it make sense? Are we getting it? Like, I just want us to all feel like we are a team. Everything that we do at camp revolves around Jesus. We believe that camp can change our campers' lives. Our goal is to provide an experience to kids who normally cannot have this type of experience. I hear back from Bosco, you guys, from foster parents, caseworkers, of how camp continuously impacts our kids and how camp was the best experience of their year, like literally all the time. On one of the applications this year from one of our returning campers, she's actually back with her biological dad. They're sisters. They came last year. They're back with their biological dad, but our motto is once you're our camper, you're always our camper, so you get to keep coming back. And so I sent the invite on the application back, Dad wrote, this was the best experience of her life. She talks about it all the time. Thank you so much for including her again. Like, this is not just one measly week in a year. Like, some of you might go on throughout your year and like not really think about it. But to these kids, it's literally a lot. It's everything to them. So this is why we send our photo books back with them so they can look back at on their camp time, which we heard about a little bit in our earlier session about how photo books are taken for show and tell to school. This is like a treasured thing for them. And so I just think that's cool, like that they're taking it with them. Let me get a drink. And I think about when they look at their photo books, they are reminded of the things and the words that were spoken of them in that moment. When they're going down the zip line and that shot, and they might have been terrified to do it, like think about that. They get to go back to those moments. So we want to make sure that we're loving without condition. Most of our kids have not experienced that. We provide safety and an opportunity for them to just be kids. This is going to be a long time if my throat doesn't stop itching. Okay. How we react to our campers' best and worst moments will be opportunities for us to impact their lives. So what I want you to ask yourselves when you're struggling with your camper is like, what has happened to them? Not what is wrong with them. That is a huge shift that we have to do in our mind. Like, as a mom or as just like a person, like, you want to be able to be like, what is wrong with you? But what we need to ask ourselves is like, what has happened to them that causes them to react the way that they're reacting? Because we already know that all of our kids are coming to camp with us, that something bad has happened to them. They've been removed from their parents. They've experienced horrific things. So we want to make sure that we're chasing the why behind their behavior. So training, yes, is important, but it's not going to prepare us emotionally for what we're getting ready to do. That's something that you guys have to do on your own in your own quiet time leading up to camp. Developing your relationships prior to camp with others on our team will come in handy at camp, which is why tonight you're finding out who you're with so that you can connect with them, get to know them, exchange phone numbers with them, all that good stuff. So I'm going to talk about fears next, and I'm going to invite Whitney up. She's going to share, I'm going to take a drink.
Hello. So Kelly asked me to come up and speak because I had called her my very first year without knowing a whole lot. When I started coming to this church, I just loved how real it was, and I loved that they were involved with, or we are involved with foster care. So I wanted to jump in and do it. And then I watched a lot of like CSI in college and a lot of stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff is horrible. Well, I then got it into my head what's happening to these kids at home and what's happening, you know, in foster homes and what's happening just in their school lives and all of that. But I had just had my twins, I guess, right? Or it might have been Emma. Anyway, one of my kiddos, I have 4, so it's hard to keep track. But anyway, and I found myself like changing their diapers, and you guys are going to be like, you are dramatic and extreme, and I know that, but I was like, I can't. Like, some of these babies, some of these kids are getting stuff done to them at home, and I don't know that I can show up. I'm like reliving this in my head right now. I don't know that I can show up and be 100% for camp. Like, it really makes my stomach hurt. And so I called Kelly, and I'm like, Kelly, like, I can't even change my kid's diaper. I am looking at them different every day, and it's just like, I don't know if I can put myself there. And she's like, well, I just encourage you to really pray through those fears. And whatever you do, I will support you, I will love you, and I will be there for you, however, whatever journey you go. Because if this isn't your, you know, mission, then it's okay. But I also really encourage you to challenge yourself through those fears, because you're going to be the one that is able to show up for these kids because you have that heart, because you have those feelings to work through that. So I did. I prayed. I sucked it up, and I was like, okay, we're going to camp. So excited. It was also the first time I had left my kids with my husband, and that was scary. He did fine. But anyway, so I am just beyond glad I came. You're going to have a hard camper. We do every single year. It is hard, and I see Emily right up here. And actually, when I was sitting back there, I'm like, I'm going to talk about Emily real quick. Because, like, every year, as I think Sarah said, is so different. But I find myself each year, like Emily last year, it was your first year last year, right? Yeah, and I just remember being like, I just love that there's a new face that we can turn to, that, like, my fear has helped me get to this point where I can, like, show up and chase kids around and, you know, do this and whatever. I mean, I know at one point last camp, Sarah and I were like, oh my gosh, if we have to chase this kid one more time, I think we're just going to stay home. And then I looked at Emily and I was like, no, she showed up. She's here. She's happy. She's like, I do this all year. I'm like, you know what? So would I. And that's why I'm here. And so thank you for that reminder. And it just was really, really powerful to see the new faces, to fight those fears. And those fears come back every year, and it's going to look a little different. I almost got punched in the face one year. I mean, like right here. You're going to probably get cussed at. You're probably going to have all kinds of things. And that stuff is scary because it's like, how do you react? Because like Kelly was saying, it's not the same that you would react to your own kids, but take yourself out of that and just be there for them and love them and lean on your team, because without having people who've been here before you and new people to remind you why you're here, you're not, I mean, that's what it's about. So I don't know if I hit everything.
Thanks, Whitney. I think my exact words were to her, you can do hard things. As she was like, literally, I'm laying out in my pool. Back when I had a pool, I don't have a pool right now. That's a whole other story. And I'm laying out, and she's just like sobbing on the other side of the line. And I'm like, you can do hard things. You'll be okay. But it's up to you. Ultimately, like, you have to decide to want to do hard things. And you can do it. So here she is, and she's still kicking. Look at her go. If you do have fears, you guys, though, let's talk through them before camp. That is a conversation I would love to be a part of. If you want me to be a part of that, you could talk to Kelly or Christy or another teammate that you're with. Like, you're not going to be standing alone in a fear if you have one. So feel free to talk to any of us about that. The most difficult challenge in making a difference in a camper's life is loving them every moment of every day rather than just managing them. Because I think we are quick to go to managing when we're tired, when they really need us to love them. So pace yourself. You guys, we've seen people start super high on Monday. I mean, like wild and crazy, out of control. But by Wednesday, they have nothing left. So we're asking you to pace yourself so that you can give your all, finish strong by the end of the week. And you can always ask me, Kelly or Christy, if you guys need help. If you don't feel like you're being effective or you're not doing what you've, I guess, envisioned in your mind of what you want to be doing at camp as far as like your effectiveness, ask us. We would love to help you. Or ask your team. Your team is safe. Like, rely on them. Can I be doing something better? Like, if you're a counselor, ask your co-counselor. Ask your direct support. Like, ask them those questions. The next thing I wanted to do is read this quote. It's about compassion. And it says, compassion asks us to go where it hurts, to enter into the places of pain, to share in brokenness, fear, confusion, and anguish. Compassion challenges us to cry out with those in misery, to mourn with those who are lonely, to weep with those in tears. Compassion requires us to be weak with the weak, vulnerable with the vulnerable, and powerless with the powerless. And I read that to say you cannot have compassion on our kids and not feel their pain. Unless you're wanting to just like look past their behaviors and challenges and just go on to the next scheduled activity, you won't appreciate their deepest needs. And so with that heart of compassion, a camper will not only feel that you care, they will know that they are lovable. And that is huge for our kids. We want them to walk away from camp and know that they are lovable because of the way that we have loved them, the way that we have treated them, the way that we have responded to them. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the do's and don'ts. Refrain from disciplining or correcting campers that are not your campers, because as the week goes on, especially, there's not that relationship piece there. So I'm not going to correct somebody else's camper because, one, their counselors and their directors should already be with them, and I don't really know that kid or know what's going on. So we're going to just stay in our lane when it comes to that kind of stuff. Whenever campers are present, your full attention needs to be focused on the interactions with them. So social interactions between you guys should not be taking place besides like a hi. Like, I'm not saying you can't, like, we're not robots, but carrying on about different things should not be happening while the campers are present. I want your attention to be on them. There's break times for that kind of stuff. Our team will work best when the attention is paid to our primary responsibility, which is our campers, and they come first that week. Build your teammates up. Gossip and putting people down, sarcasm, none of that honors God. None of that is helpful at camp. All of us together are more effective than any one of us can be individually. Strong relationship connections among our team at camp are needed for campers to feel secure and volunteers to feel appreciated. In saying that, though, this is not a week for you to be seen. Okay, so if you're coming to camp because you want to be seen at how great you are or how good you're doing, this is not your week, you guys. We try really hard to encourage you, high five you, you're doing a great job, check in on you. We try to do that. Like, we do see you, but it is not a week for you to get all the praise of how great you are, okay? If you find yourself like feeling unseen, like maybe that's a conversation you need to have between you and God. But don't come into this week thinking that you're going to get like, I don't know, a trophy at the end of the week. I don't even know. Whatever, okay? I skipped something. I turned before I was supposed to. No, I didn't. Okay. The kids are paying attention to how you're treating each other. So how you respond to each other. If you're respecting the schedule or the rules, guys, they're paying attention to all of that. They do notice. One thing that's not, that I just added at the last minute that I've talked about in years past, and I totally forgot, I don't know why it's not in my notes, but is that we do not talk about foster parent lifestyle. We have a group of 4 kids that comes from one home. They're all adopted now, and it is a lesbian family. And we are not going to comment on that. We're not going to say that we disagree with that. Honestly, they're phenomenal moms. We were just talking about, you guys, I've seen them out in public. I've seen them at drop-off here. I've seen them at pickup. They love their kids, okay? We are not going into that to say we agree or disagree with their lifestyle. That's not what we're there for, okay? We don't need to try to cause confusion in a kid that's already confused, like, and has stuff. So that's not what we're going into. So we're not talking about that. If it gets brought up, no matter how you feel about it, it's not allowed, okay? We're not talking about it. The next thing I'm going to talk about is what is abuse and neglect. And there's 4 main different types of abuse. I'm going to run through all of it just to really give you guys a clear picture of some stuff. But the first one is neglect, and that is the failure to provide for a child's basic needs, which is shelter, food, supervision, medical, education, or emotional. Number 2 is physical abuse, and that's a non-accidental physical injury, which is punching, beating, kicking, biting, shaking, throwing, stabbing, choking, hitting, burning, or otherwise harming the child that is inflicted by a parent, caregiver, or other person who has responsibility for the child. It is considered abuse regardless of whether the caregiver intended harm. Sexual abuse includes activities by a parent or caregiver such as fondling a child's genitals, penetration, incest, rape, sodomy, indecent exposure, and exploitation through prostitution of the production of pornographic materials. Number 4 is emotional or psychological abuse. It's a pattern of behavior that impairs a child's emotional development or sense of self-worth. It may include constant criticism, threats, or rejection, as well as withholding love, support, or guidance. And then there's other types of abuse and neglect. That's abandonment. A parent's identity or whereabouts are unknown. Child left alone in circumstances where child suffers serious harm. Parent has failed to maintain contact with a child or provide support for a specific period of time. There's substance abuse. Parental exposure of a child to harm due to a mother's use of an illegal drug or other substance. The manufacturing of methamphetamine in the presence of a child. Selling, distributing, or giving illegal drugs or alcohol to a child. The use of a controlled substance by a caregiver that impairs caregiver's ability to adequately care for the child. Okay, I want you guys to read all those words that are up on that screen right now. Some of our kids, you guys, have experienced all of those. So think about that. Some of them have experienced 10 of them. 5 of them, like, just think about ever experiencing any of those things. And then I want you to think about that slide whenever you're in a hard moment with your kids. And ask yourself, what if those things would have ever happened to me? This was probably one of the biggest eye-opening things to me in foster care when we started fostering, because I viewed mom and dad as bad. Oh, they're bad people. How could they possibly do this to this sweet baby girl, right? And then I learned their story. And I learned, you know, if I was sold into prostitution at age 10 so my mom could have drugs, I probably would be sitting in the same position. So think about that when you're looking at your kids at camp and they're not listening, or they're defiant, or they're mad, or they're fighting or whatever it is. You guys, we see it all. They're cussing you out. They hate you. They don't. They really love you so much. But they hate you with their words because they don't know how to tell you what's really hurting them. This is why. It makes me like, ugh, every time I look at it. Because if only we could think about that every time that we're in a hard moment, this right here, and realize this child is not the behavior that we're getting from them, right? That is not who they are. So removing the behavior from the child and just loving and looking at that child. That is a hard, guys, it is extremely hard. Like every time you guys were chasing down your girl, it is so hard to chase the why behind why she's doing that. But it's like, there's a reason. Because one of the things that you have to realize is that when your kids are going through these things and this stuff is happening to them, their brains slowly start to reconnect different wires, differently than our brains. Okay, so the way that we know how to self-soothe or to stop and calm ourselves, their brains aren't wired to do that because they have reworked their brains. Casey talked about it last session. Like they're just in survival mode. So they're trying to survive. So when they're fighting back against you, or your kid's coming down off their medications and they don't know what to do with their body, they can't control that. So yeah, they're melting down, freaking out, coming up from the lake because in an hour they're going to get their meds and they really need them right then. So it's like there are so many things, but just remember this. I think it's super important to remember all those things that our kids are experiencing that I cannot even imagine experiencing as a 40-year-old woman. Like, I can't even imagine how they feel. Okay, next slide. How should we view them? Our campers have been hurt and broken. How should we view them? It's good. And knowing something that we just talked about has happened to our campers, it's important, you guys, that we don't view them as damaged goods. They will feel that. If you're looking at them and you're like, you poor thing, like they're going to be like, I'm a charity case. These kids, you guys, they are survivors. They could probably live on the street better than I could. They know how to fend for themselves, and they know when you're trying to trick them. They're not dumb because they have more street smarts than a lot of us, probably all of us combined, okay? Probably 2 kids could probably take over us, okay? Not really, but you know what I'm saying. I was being dramatic. Okay. So we have to make sure that we do not relay to them in subtle ways that they're damaged goods. We have to be aware of, we have to see them at their potential for wholeness, is what I'm trying to say, and healing. We do believe that Jesus can make them whole. He can heal them. And that's important, that the way we view them is the way that Jesus views them. He can make them whole. He can heal their hearts. He can heal their brains and make all the connections exactly the way they need to be. We have to look at them in that same way. We have to see their potential for wholeness and healing, and we have to look at them and treat them like they are the greatest kids in all of the land. Like this is you've made it to Candyland. You are the winner. That is how we're viewing them, okay? Okay, next one. How do we respond when a camper is uncomfortable doing something? If a child feels uncomfortable doing anything, well, does anybody know the answer to that? Do I need to run this? Here, hold on. Say it out loud.
So you don't force them to do it.
Very good, Sydney. Winner. If a child feels uncomfortable doing anything, we will not force them to do it. We don't know what could be triggering their anxiety. So what do we do when a child feels uncomfortable? Children who have been sexually abused may be fearful of certain situations such as bedtime, changing their clothes, taking a shower, going to the bathroom, getting their picture taken, being alone with someone, which should never happen. They may sleep under their bed. They may avoid all physical contact. Certain kinds of friendly gestures that we take for granted every day, they might remind them of a seductive pattern of whoever did whatever to them. So just being cautious of those things, okay? So, what are some things that we're going to avoid as far as physical interactions with campers? Piggyback rides, front hugs, sitting on their beds, sitting on laps. Anything else? That covers them, I think. You guys, sometimes sexually abused kids may, which I haven't heard really much of this, maybe once, but sexually abused kids may touch themselves to stimulate themselves sexually, okay? They may reach for somebody like a counselor's sexual area. Like in those moments, actually, I think it's only happened once. Sorry, I was going back to that, just calculating in my mind. As a staff member, as somebody who's in charge of that child, it is very important in your reaction in that moment. So there's a few things that are going to happen. You're going to immediately take their hand and say, please don't touch me in that way. And you're in these moments, you guys, in these moments, you're teaching them something that they maybe have never been taught. Okay, so remember that. Not only are you stating your boundaries around your body and what's okay and not okay, but you're teaching them how to speak up for themselves, which maybe has never been shown or said to them or taught to them ever before. So it's important. So you'll just redirect the child, but you can say those things like, this is my body. Please don't touch me like that. That is okay. That's not a bad thing. Or if you have kids hanging on you all day, you could also say like, hey, I just need some personal space. I'm happy to hold your hand, but could you not hang on my shoulder? Like, you can do that. That's just redirect them to a different thing. But it's so important that the way you respond to them is not in a, don't do that. Like, don't touch me like that. Because then it immediately makes them feel gross. It immediately makes them feel like they've done something bad. And all they're doing is what they've been taught. You guys, they don't know. This is what's been done to them and told them that this is good. You should like this. Like, so, or they know that this is what made somebody else happy, so they might be trying to they don't know. So just know that the way you respond, you are not only stating your boundary, but you're also teaching them how to do that for themselves. So that's important. The next thing we're going to talk about is triggers. A trigger is something that causes someone to go back to a past trauma that usually causes them to shut down, freeze, run, or fight. So what are some triggers that we saw last year or in previous years at camp? Competition. What else? Somebody say something? Transition times. Can't believe nobody said that one. Just noise in general. Our first year being outside was a trigger for one of our girls, which our whole camp is outside. So that was really fun. Meltdowns are always, a lot of the times we see meltdowns when they're coming down off their meds too. So just that body out of control feeling can trigger some stuff. Some of our campers struggle with trust in others, self-worth, self-control, willingness to try new things. They lack socialization skills like table manners, getting along with their peers, sharing and taking turns, respecting authority, okay? There's developmental delays. So some of our campers will be delayed in literally all areas of development, mentally, physically, emotionally, and socially. And just an example of how like our kids can differ from, our kids in care can differ from our regular kids. Like a body of a teenager, like a girl, she looks like a body of a teenager, like she's 13, she looks like she's 14, but she's 10, okay? And sexually mature, knows all the things, but she's emotionally 5, okay? Normal appearing, but behind in school and zero confidence. Like those are things that we see regularly. We have 6th graders that can't read. We have 7th graders who can't read. Like you guys, and to that, I mean, it's embarrassing for them. So like, just be mindful of that too. I'm going to talk about our team attitude. We have to have an attitude of thankfulness. We can't have an attitude of like, we're doing these kids a favor. We get to love and serve these kids. It is a privilege to pour everything we have into them and to show them Jesus. The children will sense whatever you're feeling. So if you're feeling annoyed, okay, with them because they're having a tough day. They'll pick up on it. We have to be a team that exudes joy. We're happy to be here. We're happy to be with these kids. Not we have to be with these kids, or I was told I have to. Like, we get to be with them. And we have to give all of our anxiety, all of our fear, all of our stress over to God and ask Him to give us the love that we need to give these kids. This cannot be done in our own strength. And remember, all of our actions and our words are observed by our campers. We want to communicate to the child by the words coming out of our mouth and the actions that we have, how important they are. So, learning to listen. Listening validates the one who is speaking. Simply listening to a child, you guys, it can show them so much value. This may be the first time that this child feels heard, okay? Listening respects the child. So repeating back accurately like what the child has said to you, no matter what it is. Oh, you're feeling a little sad because you didn't get to play that? Like, I'm repeating what that child just said to me. I'm sad, I didn't get to play that. You're feeling sad that you didn't get to play that? Like, I'm sorry. Let's go try it again. Like, getting down on their level and giving them that. Be aware of your body language. Get eye contact. Get down on their level. And ask yourself, like, what does your resting face look like? Kelly puts her head down. Because I've seen my resting face. Casey likes to capture my resting face. And it's not nice. So just be aware of, and give what's the word? Give permission to the people that you're with all day to remind you of what your face looks like. Like, I'm being serious. Like, give them permission to remind you to exude joy. Like, hey, face. Like, whatever. Make up a saying. I don't care what you do. Like, do something to where they can remind you of what your face is looking like so you can pop back into it, okay? Yeah, anyways. We're going to watch a video. So Johnny's going to get that going.
When a child from a hard place doesn't feel safe, the result is often behaviors that appear willful, baffling, and infuriating to caregivers. How we respond in these moments is critical, and TBRI has developed a guideline to help. The ideal response looks at the levels of behavior with the goal of moving the child to a calmer state. Immediate means dealing with misbehavior within 3 seconds. Meltdowns are a runaway train. A gentle word and often just the question, "I see you're upset, what do you need?" is enough to put on the brakes. Hunger, dehydration, and a need for sleep are often triggers. Direct isn't glancing up from your phone and yelling across the room. It's responding with direct eye contact, proximity, and reassuring touch when possible. Efficient stresses levels of a response using a kind voice and the fewest words. Caregivers should ask, what is this behavior saying? What does this child need? And how can I teach them to get these needs met? Action-based can offer a child a do-over. Instead of punishment, a calming, smiling voice saying, "Let's try that again," followed by praise can create an instructional path and a positive body memory. Leveled at behavior addresses the behavior, not the child, allowing the caregiver to be an advocate, not an adversary. When you're reactive instead of proactive, you put your energy in the wrong place and miss the opportunity for a teaching moment. Playful engagement works best when the behavior is at a low level. A redo can diffuse the situation quickly. A cheerful, "Can you try that again with respect?" can turn the tide when followed by praise. Structured engagement is needed when the situation has escalated and playful engagement has failed. If a meltdown ensues by offering the child a choice, they learn they have a voice. "Can I have a compromise?" said in a firm, calm voice followed by, "Good compromise," can introduce recognizable scripts a child can understand. When aggressive behavior looms, nothing is gained by responding in anger or isolation. Calming engagement says, "Here, come sit beside me. You seem to be having a hard time. You let me know when you're ready to talk." Remaining calm and keeping the child close changes the dynamic. When there's a potential for violence, protective engagement means first removing the child or others from the situation and letting them know that they're safe and not defined by their behavior. Helping the child to breathe and asking what they need can help restore calm. The foundation of TBRI is that behaviors are driven by fear and unmet needs, and when we avoid angry, punitive behavior ourselves, we open the door to better outcomes for our children.
That was way better than listening to me talk about that. We've talked about this year after year. We try to do TBRI the best we can at camp, and this just gives you a good picture of kind of what it looks like to engage whenever there's an issue. So, yeah, that's ideal, but also the different levels of engagement. Now, you know that if you get past a point where you feel like you can't quite handle what's happening with your kid, you can always call in for help. And so usually the girls call in Kelly Bridges, and I get called in for the guys. And so if you get to a place where your kid's really struggling, you can always ask for help, or you don't know what to do and you're kind of at a loss. You're not bad or wrong. Like, you can always ask for help. The next thing we're going to talk about is power and control. So we see this every year. Once our campers feel safe or comfortable, they start testing the waters a little bit. And they'll misbehave, and we see that often with our returning campers who think they like run the camp. I mean, they get on the bus and they're like, yeah, like we're returning campers, we know everything. It's very clear, you guys, if you're on the bus team, you know. But one of the things that are really good at helping is, like, if you have a cabin or you have kids in your cabin that struggle with transition times, which I think a lot of cabins struggle with transition times, do a countdown. So like, hey guys, 15 minutes, like say they're swimming. 15 minutes, we have to get out and dry off. And then 10 minutes, we have to get out and dry off. Like giving those verbal warnings to them so that they're mentally preparing in their mind. And make sure that you have a watch on. You guys cannot bring your phones with you, so have a watch on. Or you can give the options of like, hey, do you want to get out now and dry off and start walking to the next thing, or in 5 minutes? Just know whatever you offer, make sure that you are good with, okay? Make sure it works for your whole cabin. Don't offer them things that you're actually not okay with. The next thing I'm going to talk about is reporting abuse. If you have a reasonable suspicion, you guys, that there is something happening to your kids. Now, we know all of our kids are in care for a reason, so they've already had something happen to them. What I'm saying is that if they come to you and they say, foster dad is doing this, foster mom is doing this, or my brother in my home has done this to me, that's something that you're going to come and talk to us about, and we're going to have to talk to somebody else about it. What we're not doing is like, hey, what's happened to you? Like, we're not doing that. We're not asking them questions about why they're there. We know stuff has happened, right? That's why they're at our camp, right? But if there is something that's going on that's not past, that is present, that is when you will come and talk to us about it. The next thing is our medications. Our medical team, they're responsible for collecting and dispersing all medication for all of our kids. If you are sleeping in a cabin with the kids, you also have to have your meds in with the nurses or in somewhere else. You cannot have them in your cabin with you. The next thing I'm going to talk about is camp rules. I'm going fast because I'm running a long time. Okay, camp rules. Now I know how Jamie feels. What? I only have this many minutes left. Okay. He rolled his eyes. He's rolling his eyes at me. Okay. Oh, it's true. It's true. We're here all night. Okay. Rules are important, you guys. The rules that we have in place are not only to protect our kids, they are to protect you as well. So, 2 deep. What is that rule? 2 adults. 2 adults for every 1 kid. Is that a junior staff? No. Please do not ask your junior staff to be your 2 deep. Now, there are no junior staff that are with any cabins. They have other rules this year, but they will be around. Please don't ask them to do that. I'm giving them authority to tell you no. And so they can throw me under the bus with that. That means that anytime you go behind closed doors or to a secluded area or anything, you have to have 2 adults with you. That just makes sure, you guys, if you don't understand why that rule is important, it's important because if something was ever accused of a child said, Emily did something to me. And Emily's like, I didn't do that. I was with Keeler the whole time. Keeler was with me. She can vouch for what actually happened and what didn't happen. Now, if Emily is like, I was by myself in the bathroom with her, I have nobody to, okay, we don't have that accountability. The importance of it not being a junior staff is we need an adult to vouch, not a child. So that's why we need an adult, okay? The next thing I'm going to talk about is private beds. What does that mean? Yes. You are not to be on your camper's bed. They are not to be on your bed. You should not have campers on camper's bed. Everybody has their own private space. So things that we've had happen in the past are specifically with Sydney. She's had a girl that's scared, wants Sydney to sleep by her. So Sydney takes her mattress. They're very easy, you guys. They're really comfy mattresses. You're gonna love them. You take them off, and she put it on the floor, and she slept on the floor. And she could still hold her hand while she slept, but she wasn't violating anything. She wasn't, in the bed with her or holding her or anything, but she was close, and she felt safe, and she slept, okay? The next thing is photography. There are no photos or videos of children allowed to be taken. There's no cell phones, no exchanging of personal information, no social media contact. All contact beyond camp, if you choose to do it, has to be done with the caseworker or the foster parent, and then also do not give out camp information. You'll get the address that's on the paper tonight. Please don't share that. That's out of protection for our kids. So just keep that. If you need to give it to somebody for emergency, that's fine, but let's try to keep that quiet. And then my big thing with this is, you guys, is don't make promises to our kids. Oh, I'm going to come pick you up when we get out of here, and we're going to hang out, okay? You will break your promise. Do not do that. And they don't deserve that. If you desire, which this has been done beautifully. Tim Steiner has done it beautifully. It can be done, you guys. Sydney, I know, has done this as well. You can have a relationship with them outside as long as everybody's okay with that. But come to me a week or two or a month later and say, hey, this has been on my heart. I still want to do this. Can I please do this? And I will connect you. I don't want you to make promises that you're not going to keep, because it's so heartbreaking and so sad. So please don't do that. Really quickly, we're going to talk dress code. Clothing should always be appropriate and modest. Everyone must wear a hiking sandal with a back or a tennis shoe at all times. That is in case we have runners. You have to be able to keep up. Men, do you like that swimming suit? Johnny, we knew they'd like it. See? Full coverage, brief bottoms. I'm just kidding. You guys don't have to wear that swimming suit. Oh, gosh. Sorry, it's spill free, but it's spilled. Okay. Men, the only stipulations that I have for you is that you need to wear a shirt while you're swimming. Girls, your shorts, 4 to 5 inch inseam, please, nothing shorter, okay? We do tank tops, but I want to make sure that they are full coverage. I don't want to see any cleavage, nothing on the side. I don't want to see your midsection, nothing. One-piece swimming suits or tankinis that cover you completely. The list of what to pack is back there if you guys did not get that. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is team unity. And it's kind of what I've already said in the beginning, you guys. This cannot happen on our own. You can't be the Lone Ranger out to save the whole camp, okay? We have to do this together. And if you're going into this thinking that it's not challenging, and if you're new and you didn't get that from the panel of what the people said before, you're going to suffer. So please take everything that we're saying and know that, as much as we say it is so extremely hard, it is really the best. It is really such a good hard. So don't think that you're going to be so defeated and that was the worst week of my life. No, look at all the people that have been doing this for 6 years. They come back because it's a good hard. But preparing for camp happens more than just a day before camp packing. So again, I say to you, prepare your hearts. Prepare, okay? And prepare to die to yourself daily. There might be something that you think should go one way and it doesn't, or you're not seeing eye to eye with the person that you're with. Prepare to just be willing to say, okay, and go on for the goodness of your cabin and the goodness of camp, okay? Putting the success of camp above our own ideas or selfishness of it being our way. To be effective, each volunteer needs to view each hour at camp as an opportunity for building camper relationships. Everyone has the right to his or her opinion, but don't use it to cause a problem. There will be time after camp, you guys, that if you have an issue at camp, we can have one-on-one conversations. I've done it before. Like, I'm not afraid to have those if it's hard for you, you have something you need to say to me. That's fine. We also ask for them at the end of the week where we want you guys to be honest with us, okay? We want you to tell us. We write it all down on our board. We try to literally do every single thing that you guys ask and request, okay? We want your thoughts, but not in the middle of the week. Keep those thoughts, write them down in your little notebook or type them into your phone and write them down on Friday. We have to be flexible. We have to be willing to change jobs, schedules during camp. We do make mistakes sometimes on the schedule, and we just kind of roll with it. Asking for help is viewed as a positive character trait. It will help you maximize your effectiveness at camp. And as we lead up to camp, I want us to ask ourselves 3 questions. Are we willing to go outside of our comfort zone? Are we willing to not only be physically, but also mentally and spiritually available at camp? Are we willing to acknowledge that the campers need God's love more than they need us? That is a huge one. That last one, we are not the answer to the kids' healing. We are not it. And I know I'm at my time, but I'm going to share the story anyway. I'm almost done. But we were walking out of the Cardinal game the other day and walking down the street, and I've never passed so many homeless people in my life. But there was a specific one. We were walking up by Purina. If you park down there, you know. And there was a man walking back and forth, and there was a stroller and a little boy, maybe 4 years old. And I was like, oh, Lord, please don't let there be a baby in that stroller. I mean, I'm immediately like sick. I'm sure Erin was like, oh gosh, what is she gonna do? And my knee-jerk reaction, you guys, was like, this guy asked us, can you give us any money? Okay? And my knee-jerk thing that really literally wanted to come out of my mouth was, would you like me to take your kids? And then immediately I was convicted because, you guys, I am not the answer. The answer is not for us to take these kids and hide them away and that's not the answer. Like, the only answer is for God to intervene in their life. And that is so important when we're going into camp to realize that we are not the answer. We can only do what the Lord gives us to give to them. We're only going to love them if we love like Jesus and we let him flow through us. We're only going to do all these hard things if we're willing to be used for him. And that starts with open hands and open hearts and preparing our hearts leading up to camp. You know, my focus as the director, our focus as your directors, is not for you guys just to barely survive. You guys, our goal, what we desire, is for lives to be changed. We listen to 6 people first time, like, talking about how this has impacted their life daily and how it's impacted the way that they think and the way that they view things. And that's what our desire is for all of you. That's what our desire is for our kids that are coming, is that their lives would be changed. And so if we remind you during camp what needs to be done, one of the biggest things, I think one of the most common things that I have to say a lot is, get in the water with your kids and swim, okay? And I know that you guys are all going to that dark place of the lake right now. That muddy bottom and brown poop water. But see, Sarah, she knows. Here's the thing, you guys. For a lot of our kids, this is literally sometimes the first time they've ever fished, okay? They don't get to do these things. They don't get to go swimming. It is amazing how many applications I get, and they're like, I don't know, they've never swam. Okay? They don't get to do these things. So when we remind you guys, hey, I need you in the water with your kids right now, and I need you swimming, like, that is because that's what these kids need. They need you to be excited to have fun with them. And I know that it's not the beach in Florida with white sand, but, like, take your mind there and jump in, okay? This is such a short-term missions trip. You guys, we say 5 days, but you guys break it down in your mind. It's really a half day, 3 full days, and a half day that you are giving, and it's a missions trip to kids that live right here, okay? We're on mission right where we're at. We don't have to go over to Africa to do this. We get to do it right here or wherever people go in the world for missions trips. Never been, so I don't know. But we do have to leave the comfort of our lives and do this and dive in emotionally into our campers' world for them to really feel loved. In order for our team to be effective, there has to be respect for authority. So even if you might not understand the why behind something, you guys, please, I promise you that we're not setting you up to hurt you, to destroy your life, ruin your day, like nothing. Like, we're asking you to do something because it's necessary. And I'll never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. If you do have an issue with somebody or something that's going on at camp, please don't go to everybody else, you guys, like, because it just reaps discord. And it just brings out bad attitudes and, whatever. If there's something that needs to be addressed, like, please just bring it. If it's immediate, bring it to us right away so we can deal with it. But let's not try to just, talk about it to everybody. There are people that we're accountable to, you guys, that we've made promises to, that we've told that this is how our camp is ran. So, the Too Deep thing, all this stuff to protect our kids is important that we abide by these rules, because I've promised this to DCFS, to private agencies, to foster parents. They're relying on us, or they would not be giving us their kids. We have kids coming from 2 hours away to come to our camp, desperate for our camp. So, because they know the way that we run our camp is exactly set up for what their child needs. What else? Oh, I shared this before in years past. But for everybody new, you haven't heard it, so here it goes. In year 1 was our hardest year, I would say, learning-wise. I keep looking at you. Chrissy's back there. She's always in the back, never in the front. I think it was probably our hardest year, and I remember walking up feeling extremely defeated and God, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. You guys, I'm just a very normal idiot. I'm dumb, okay? And just trying to figure things out. And I'm I'm not equipped to lead these people. I don't know what I'm doing as a lead. All the things, you're just feeling defeated because something terrible has just happened. And Jesus was just very clear, they're not following you. They're following me. And it made me just understand, you guys, we're first called to him. We're first called into a relationship with him, right? So we've answered that call. Or at least I hope everybody here has, okay? We've answered that call. And then from that calling, we're now going out and we're doing what he's commanded the church to do, which is to care for these kids, to care for them, and to speak life over them, and to love people everywhere we go. This is just a very small week in what we should be doing all year long, right? And so as your leader, I don't carry that burden anymore. I don't have that, I guess it's an insecurity of not being good enough, because I realize that you guys are all here doing exactly what he's called you to do and where he's positioned you to do. And I trust that you're going to do great in it. But I do pray, you guys, that you guys all come back brokenhearted for what you experienced that week, and that you're never the same because of what you see, what you hear, what you experience. Because once you know, you can't unknow the pain that is foster care. This verse is Mark 10:43-45. It says, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, just as the Son of Man did not come into the world to be served, but to serve." And so we greatly appreciate your yes to be on our team. We really look forward to seeing you guys in action at camp. This is really our greatest thing, because we do all the behind the scenes and try to prepare to make this great. But watching you guys do what you do is the best thing for us. So thank you guys so much. We are going, I'm going to release you. 7 minutes past, I'm so sorry. But junior staff, you are not released, so stay put and all gather together over there. If you guys want to come and look through what's in your totes, this will give you an idea. You can add to, bring, men, we know how you roll. You hang up that plastic tablecloth and call it a day. Women, you put up full-on lemonade stands and white Christmases. So you can see a little bit of what you have to work with. We did take your suggestions, you guys. We added stuff that you requested from last year. So please see that. If you have any questions, though. Do we have uniforms every day? Well, Hayden, thank you for asking. We are working for the kids. You have to bring your own clothes, okay? We are working towards having, which I'm pretty sure we can pull it off because I'm already in communications with the t-shirt people. But you know you have your Monday and your Friday shirt. You wear that. Everybody wears that. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, your kids should have the color cabin that they're in with "My Name Is," and we'll just Sharpie that bad boy right on there. No, they'll be in their blue bags, which we'll go over those at camp since some of you did not use your blue bags last year. Only the men. I'll single them out. And I could actually single out the exact cabin if you need me to. Sorry, Gray. Okay. Anybody have a question? I highly suggest you get your team together, find your people if you don't know them, and exchange phone numbers. And then junior staff, I'm coming for you over there.